Yeah, so today, really excited to have some customers talk about some outcomes that they're driving on Google Cloud to achieve some business success. So first session, we're going to have, I'm going to moderate this one. We're going to talk about mission critical app modernization. I kind of think that legacy gets a bad rap in some organizations, and we're here to maybe prove that legacy is a good thing here sometimes. And moving those to cloud is a very viable option for organizations. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my first two guests up. Roshni from Google Cloud. So come on up, Roshni. Thank you. And Mike Kennedy from GFS, Gordon Food Service. Yes. Awesome. All right, let's have a seat. Just so you know, the blue spaces are lava. Don't go near them. But if you sit on chairs, you should be fine. Otherwise, it's Feedback City. So.
Oh, good.
I was wondering what you meant by that.
Yeah, they're right under speaker, so you get a lot of feedback. So, cool. Well, thanks for joining. Roshni, why don't you start with a quick intro, who you are and what do you do at Google?
Of course. Good afternoon, everyone. I feel like I have feedback. Let me hold it further away. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roshni Joshi, and I have the privilege of leading our cloud customer engineering team for Google Cloud and US Central. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for hosting us.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
Good food.
Yeah, thanks. Mike. Mike Kennedy, why don't you give a quick intro as well?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm with Gordon Food Service out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I lead our technology, digital, and data functions. Been with the company about 4.5 years.
Mike, why don't you let everybody know what does GFS do?
So Gordon Food Service, we are in the food service business, as our name implies. We service restaurants, schools, hotels, healthcare facilities across the U.S. and Canada. So we are the largest privately held food service distributor in North America.
Awesome. Good stuff. So today I wanted to talk about mission critical app modernization and what cloud can play in that space today. Mike, you've been on a journey at GFS pretty much since we've known you at Kin Carta here, and that journey has been cloud first. I'd love for you to talk about what does modernization look like. And I know the first example of that we helped work with you on was e-commerce. I'd love for you to talk about what has that meant for you and what have you been able to do with Google Cloud on e-commerce?
Absolutely. So for Gordon Food Service, and again, just before my arrival in 2018, there was a large sort of investment in how do we get the business to move faster? How do we create value quicker? How do we make data available more quickly? How do we improve our customer experience? And so one of the first things we did was looked at our e-commerce solution, and that runs billions of dollars through it on an annual basis across North America and the US. We had two separate platforms, one in the US and one in Canada. And like most companies, we were sort of relegated to monthly release cycles, sometimes quarterly or even annually, depending on how large the change was. So it was difficult for us to make change quickly. And so obviously, the move to cloud was already a pretty big thing in all industries. But also what we realized is it's not just a technology solve. What we had to do was really modernize our processes. How do we take technology to market? How do we leverage the cloud? So we did things when we partnered with Kin Carta, like how do we start building a CI/CD process so that we can continuously innovate and integrate and develop as we go? How do we make sure that we can do multiple releases a day, not just once on Saturday at 3 a.m. when no users are in the system? How do we get performance and availability up to a standard that we could never practically build internally, as well as some of the redundancy? So it all came down to how do we leverage technology to give us those capabilities, at the end of the day delivering more business value for our end users who are our customers.
Awesome. Sounds like a lot of work.
It has been, and leveraging the GCP and Kin Carta's partnership to teach us along the way has been instrumental in getting us to where we are.
Yeah. So Roshni, I want to turn to you. That it's interesting about the teaching aspect of this, and There is a massive skill gap issue that's in America right now around cloud. I would love to hear, like, what do you see from the Google standpoint? What can other organizations do to learn from Google on what does upskilling look like? What does reskilling look like? Because this is a really big deal.
Sure. So before I answer the question, I'm going to ask for audience participation and have you guys do this silly little exercise with me. So I'm going to have to try to figure out how to do this while I hold my mic, so bear with me. So I want everybody to hold their hands up, both your hands, and make a fist. All right. And I'm going to demonstrate what I want you to do, so bear with me while I put my mic down. You guys too. All right. Thank you. All right, so go like this. And then when I say 1, 2, 3, clasp your hands together. 1, 2, 3, clasp your hands together. Awesome. So how many people have your right thumb over your left thumb? About, what is that, 50% of the room?
Maybe a little bit more, yeah.
Maybe a little bit more. And left over right, the rest of you? Any other options? No. All right, so let's try that again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. How many of you have the same same thumb over the other? And let's see how many of you didn't do the same thumb over the other. All right, now I want you to do that again. Do that again. And when I say 1, 2, 3, clasp your hands together, but put the other thumb over. All right, 1, 2, 3. How many of you did that? Awesome. All right, now I want you to sit like that, in that position, the opposite position. So do that again. 1. And 1, 2, 3. Sit like that. Sit like that for a little bit. Hold your fingers like this. Sit like that. How did it feel? How does it feel? Weird? Yeah? Uncomfortable? That's a little bit like the transformation that Mike and his teams went through. Far worse. Far, far worse, right? So you're learning a new skill, and that was a very tiny skill, the opposite thumb over the other thumb. Over here, you're learning new processes, new technical capabilities. All of us want that purple unicorn, including the Ford CEO who told us that he was going to hire all the Google engineers. But none of us, like the purple unicorn isn't manufactured in a factory anywhere. So you have to build for the purple unicorn, right? That takes time, that takes patience, that takes a vision. So I'm sure one of the things Mike and his leadership team did when they went through this process is set out a vision and share with people why you were going through this change. Mike laid out a number of different reasons for why GFS was undergoing it. Business agility, faster deployment times, perhaps capital expenditure reduction was a part of it. So share that with your people. Share a timeline. Start with a core group of individuals who understand or are willing to learn about cloud capabilities and how to transform. And then have those people be responsible for things like best practices architecture, establishing blueprints. I'll refer back to Ford again, and I have some of the team members from Google who worked on the Ford project. The very first things we did with Ford is establish blueprints. And Mike Neimer is sitting back in there. He used to constantly complain about, we talked about blueprints. Why are people deviating? Get them back to the blueprint, because when you're taking on a journey at scale, you have to have that course, the foundational set of things that get you to momentum. That is best practices, that is blueprints, that is governance. Those things are very important. So establish a core group of people, call it Cloud Center of Excellence, call it DevOps, whatever you will, but establish that core group of cross-functional people who will do that for you. And then it comes to building a fluency. And what we have discovered is when you want to move at scale, you have to reach critical mass. You have to get people to talk the same language. So cloud fluency is very important. Google has introduced a number of different ways to get people to cloud fluency. We have programs such as Cloud Hero, where we come in and run gamified workshops. You can get points, you can get stickers, you can get Google swag. Make a big deal out of it. Like, give people hero status for getting trained. That's super important. A special parking spot, a special chair, a crown on their forehead, whatever it is that gets them going, you have to give training its due. Education is super important. And like Mike said, make your cloud partners part of your journey, right? We are here to help you, whether it's Google, whether it's the partner you're working with, Kin Carta. We can bring in that point-in-time expertise, but ultimately, at the end of the day, the talent exists within the organizations, and the talent needs to be molded and grown to help deliver the outcomes of cloud transformation.
I love that. I love it. Yeah, and at Kin Carta, I mean, one of the jobs that I have is just talking to a lot of organizations. And the truth is, that's exactly what you said. The talent is there. They just don't know to do those new things because they don't do them today. So a lot of times what we see in organizations that we see resources with high aptitude that can do some of these cloud skills. They just haven't been able to do and focus on those things in their daily job. And when you put it in their daily job, they start to really excel at them. So yeah, I think it's a lot of upskilling. But the truth of the matter is, like, a lot of organizations have those resources already. They're very loyal to the company. They know the purpose of the company, why they work there. They're very loyal, and it's worthwhile to invest in them. Yeah, because it is a very challenging job market out there right now. As far as tech and cloud goes, I mean, I think the report I saw was we have 100,000 cloud openings today in America. 100,000 openings. And we don't have 100,000 people entering the job market. So all we're doing is just stealing from each other for resources. So yeah, it's time to upskill and train some of these folks on our teams. Cool. Mike, so application, e-commerce, that was kind of the first foray into modernization. Let's talk data. I hear data all the time in conversations now with customers that this is their next thing that they're moving towards. So a lot of it was a customer experience they wanted to get out into cloud. But now it's, organizations have been in the store and hold mentality for such a long time on data. I'd love to hear, what is GFS doing around data, and what's the vision around that?
Absolutely. So from a data perspective, as Mark mentioned, we really did focus a lot on customer experience, but what became pretty clear pretty early was there's only so much we can do if our data isn't in a good spot. It needs to be accessible, it needs to be highly available, and it needs to be understood, whether you're making it available to other systems like an e-commerce platform, analysts that do kind of the day-to-day analysis of the business, or as we really ramped up our advanced analytics practice with our data science folks. So what we realized pretty early was, like most companies, there was not a shortage of data in our environment. It was running a rather large business, so we knew transactionally it was working well. Well, where we really wanted to make a difference was around making it available at a more consistent, higher quality level so that we can make better decisions much faster. I'm sure everybody in this room is doing that to a certain extent. And so what we did was, again, because of our success, early success with GCP on the e-commerce front, as I mentioned, we really looked at GCP and what their capabilities were in this data space. And at the end of the day, in 2019, we set out a few key principles that we wanted to move fast, we wanted security, and we really wanted a partner who could help us get there very quickly. So what we did in 2019 at the leadership of Brendan, who's in the audience today, was we brought a team in. We said, we're gonna try BigQuery. We knew it wasn't where Snowflake was, it wasn't where Azure was to a certain extent. But again, sort of like was mentioned in Google Next, it was running Google Ads, it was running search. So from a technology perspective, we liked where it was and obviously where it was going. We came in for 3 days and to the Google offices, and ultimately, with our data engineers, software developers, had 2 or 3 pilots where we could get data in and get data out pretty effectively. So after seeing what we could do in 3 days with very little knowledge, literally, and that included the ramp-up time, that included the report out. So it was really about a day and a half of actual development where we kind of proved out this concept. From there on out, we went all in on BigQuery from a data lake perspective, as well as replacing our data warehouses that really power our analytics engine, which runs MicroStrategy from a dashboarding and reporting perspective. But it was really those consistent principles that we wanted to get at, and we've held true to those principles. Now, all along the way, we found, hey, we wish we would have done this different, or we could do this differently, or do this better. But if we would have waited to figure all of that out, we wouldn't be where we are today. We're not at the finish line, if there is such a thing. But that process, leveraging GCP, leveraging the internal skills we already have and just curiosity to learn, really demonstrated what our folks were capable of, and we've been running with it ever since. And the last thing I would say is, we didn't have an exact strategy. We had those principles that I mentioned, but when COVID hit, and obviously on the food service business, that took a really massive impact when it came to restaurants and schools pretty quickly. And because we had a strategy, we were partially implemented, we had pre-built data pipelines from our data lake that we quickly made data available much more quickly than we could have in our previous world, that really helped guide the business in those early days and weeks. It would have been weeks or months for us to do some of the things we did in hours and days. So that was really where it came to life.
That's awesome. One thing you said there that really resonated with me was we just started and we didn't have a perfect strategy, but we knew we needed to get started. I think so many organizations today struggle with, I need this deck to be perfect. It's the perfect strategy, the slides are meticulous, and we're gonna go talk about this, and that's gonna be the strategy, and it's perfectly, and we're gonna go out there. But it's not. You're never done. Like, to your point, like, I don't even know where the finish line is. Like, that seems like a really long ways away.
Absolutely. I don't think there's going to be any shortage of data available or needs for data anywhere in our lifetimes, and I'm sure far beyond.
I love it. Just get started, right? We're never going to craft the perfect strategy here. That's awesome. Yep. Roshni, when you're talking to customers on getting started, so this is one thing I would like to explore with you on, okay, let's have customer signs up with Google Cloud. Where do they get started? How do they get things going? Is it data do we start with? Is it apps? Do you modernize? Do you lift and shift? Do you put everything in and never look back? What do you do?
I'm smiling because this is so close and near and dear to my heart, because I see so many of our customers going through this, this thought process and this journey every single day. And I will start by echoing what you said. Perfect is often the enemy of good. Perfect is often the enemy of good. So you have to get started. What Mike talked about, the experimentation, that is so critically important, like building that culture of a growth mindset, of learning, of an education, and then a culture of experimentation. Get your people, your smart creatives together in the room, find those use cases and start building. Like, none of us learned how to swim. I learned how to swim as an adult, but none of us learned how to swim by reading a PowerPoint or a white paper, right? We had to jump into the pool. Similarly, you have to get the hands-on experience to learn how to build on the cloud. So it doesn't matter what the use case is, just find a use case and get started. It could even be, and I'll be provocative here, we are talking about modernization, but it could even be a lift and shift or a move and improve. Just by going through that process, whether it's a move and improve or a lift and shift, you're actually building and strengthening the skills and the best practices and tuning the architecture and the blueprints that you need to be successful in your larger journey in the cloud. And you're never done. Like, we just announced Coinbase payments for cloud. I'm like, what did we just do? Like, that to us from a cloud perspective, I can't wait for the first customer to be presented with an invoice and to be telling us, oh yeah, I'm going to use my Coinbase crypto account for that. Have fun, Google people, with that situation. But we are never done. We are even as a business, we, Google, are constantly evolving, and all of us have to constantly evolve. I mean, there are fundamental things that we do. You have to build a business case. You have to communicate the business case, the reasons for going to the cloud. You have to understand your application portfolio. You have to segment it, like whether you go through Gartner's 5 Rs or whatever, the refactored, replatform, et cetera. You have to segment it, but you have to get started. I don't know if I answered your question, but I rambled quite a bit.
They're up to 7 Rs now.
Oh yeah, that is right. I did see that. 5, 6, and 7th one now.
Nice. So listen, you brought up another good segue to a question I have as well, and I think a lot of us, can dig in on this and understand where it's coming from. Cloud is expensive. It is not the cheapest resource out there to go and get, and we're starting to hear a lot of pressure around CFOs are having cost concerns around cloud spend, and things are getting out of control. We never thought this was going to be this way, but what we have to be able to do is communicate that those things that we're spending money on are driving innovation, right? And it's good money to spend because we're driving outcomes towards this. That's a good investment. And so I'm in the camp of, yes, it is a pricier option, but it's a good option because it is driving innovation. But there are the naysayers in the C-suite that are saying, no, we should be doing this other way, this other way. Mike, how are you approaching C-suite conversations with your peers on cloud spend? And how is that conversation going?
Some days it goes better than others, like I'm sure most of the people in the room. There's still this mindset, justifiably across many companies, that when you kick something off and everybody's all in, let's go down this path and let's implement whatever that thing is, and then we'll move on to the next thing. That's not the model we're in now. Then you just depreciate that asset over X number of years moving forward, and then you move on to the next thing. That obviously isn't the subscription model. That's not the cloud model. So while there's always a lot of excitement around, the capabilities and the speed and only paying for what you need when you need it, instead of having to buy 3 years of infrastructure, we talk about we can, try something, and if it doesn't work, we can shut it down. And it didn't take, a ton of infrastructure investment. So we really hammer that home quite a bit. But it's a continuous conversation. There's no doubt that when we make things available to the end users, whether it's our supply chain leader, our CFO, our sales and marketing leader, whoever that leader might be in the C-suite, they love the value that's being given. A couple times a year, they do a deep dive on the costs, and they're like, it's a little more expensive than last year. And again, what we try to focus on is value. What are we getting for that? And so we've implemented, really kind of led by our data team that other teams have adopted, is this concept around being very intentional around value stories. So we did all of this. Most of the time we would just move on to the next thing, as long as it wasn't massively over budget from an implementation perspective and it was performing okay. We moved on to the next thing. What we do now is we come back and we say, here's what we can do now, here's how we did it. Oh, and by the way, here's what it would have taken in a legacy world or in a non-modernized world. And here's the difference. Here's how much faster we did it. Here are the tools that we brought to bear. And just constantly having that conversation. I think any good executive team or C-suite, or specifically the CFO, that isn't constantly challenging rising costs probably isn't doing his or her job. So we're prepared for it, and we try to manage it throughout the year in talking about value.
Cool. Mike, if you could go back in time 5 years and give Mike Kennedy some advice on the journey in front of him, what would that be?
Great question. Honestly, I think there's this balance of how fast is fast enough, how slow is too slow, how fast is too fast. My team and I were just talking sort of in between the sessions here, and it was, we just built things, or are contemplating building things that were just, introduced at the next, session a little bit ago. So I think, really being intentional about when do we build, when do we wait for the next general release, how do we balance that speed component with cost and risk, how do we build security in maybe a little more upfront versus having to retrofit, kind of looking at that sort of how we started. We were super experimental, we wanted to go, and we did a lot of great things. I think what we're figuring out now is how do we long-term operationalize without losing that curiosity to continue to innovate and learn. Kind of focusing on how that would be a little earlier in the process.
Yeah. Nice. Roshni, what do you help setting the stage for a customer? let's say, net new customer, greenfield at Google Cloud, what advice do you give them? Where do they start?
Clarifying question. So start on the cloud migration journey or start from a FinOps perspective?
FinOps. Let's start
FinOps,
there. Yep.
yeah. So, Mike answered the question in such detail and so beautifully. I think a lot of the things he talked about are things that every customer who's contemplating a cloud journey should be incorporating. Every technology executive, their job changes, right? Mike, did you feel your job changed? Like you became not only the chief technology officer, but also like a chief change management officer. And it was your job to bring the business and smush together business and technology and constantly resell the value of why technology was doing what it does. And in a way, you're changing, you have to change the brand of what the technology team provides the organization, which Mike talked about as he goes back to the value statement. So along with that, I think just more from an operational perspective, the implementation of that tactically happens through a strong FinOps practice, right? Yes, you have to get buy-in from your CFO, your CEO, obviously, your chief people officer by telling them how you're changing the talent profile of the organization and making GFS or Ford or any other organization the best destination workplace for your employee, your chief marketing officer, how you're changing the brand of the company, how you're getting more intimacy with customers, how you're driving a better user experience. But from a CFO standpoint, the strong FinOps practice is important. Measurement is super important. You start there. Like, what is the cost? What value are you delivering? And reporting on it, like reporting on those OKRs. The second is optimization. Like, we would be irresponsible as technology providers, as consultants, and as technology executives if we weren't constantly looking at ways to optimize. And Google, for example, provides tools to be able to do that, both for the visibility as well as for the optimization that automate and make recommendations for you. So that optimization, both from a technology perspective, what technology platform or service can I move to, which is more optimal, but also from a commercial perspective, can I use cards on a Google platform or sustained use discounts, any kind of discount mechanism to drive down the cost. So that optimization is a second pillar. And the third is operate. Like how can I take the value that the platform is delivering and tie it back to the business that it benefits. So in other words, some kind of chargeback or showback mechanism so you're doing it. And do it in a continuous fashion, right? Build in that operational cadence to do it continuously. I think those are the things that are very important, especially in an economy like we are going through where we are seeing a macroeconomic downturn. Those practices become even more important. More and more customers are asking us about, how do we implement better FinOps? What wasn't a concern around migrating to the cloud has now gotten bigger scrutiny, and the variability of the cost too has gotten bigger scrutiny. So more sort of effort needs to go into being able to predict that cost as well a little bit better.
Cool. Mike, last question for the group here. What was the thing that you didn't expect to happen in this cloud journey that happened? Like, what was unexpected for you?
A good way or a bad way? I got both.
Let's do both. Yeah.
So I would say on the more negative side, I touched on it, but maybe just to double down is, we really believe in experimentation, taking very calculated risk. Letting teams run and bring back solutions to the broader teams. I would say the surprise was we were so far along that we had to come back and sort of rein everybody back in to a certain extent in our centralized application development efforts, as well as our enterprise architects were trying to manage all of what these individual teams were doing. So trying to, again, retrofit some of that work, proved to be challenging. Many more positives, which, I don't know if it's on a daily basis, but it certainly feels like that at times. There are times when, we can now do zero downtime changes as we roll over to different regions and zones while updates go in. The fact that we can now do, I think the last I checked, our e-commerce team was doing, 8 to 10 releases a day. Some are, more significant than others. Some are font changes, but we can do them, 8 to 10 times a day. And then just the elasticity that it has brought us in these mission critical apps when it comes to, hey, we're seeing a performance problem. We just put SAP out there. we need to increase our resources, compute, memory, something for a short period of time while we figure out what's going on. And in our old world, we never could have done that. We would have either had to buy for our end state capacity, which would have been spending millions of dollars too soon, or we would have just said, we're at our limit, let's order some more stuff, and then deal with this challenge until we can get it fixed. So you can tell I'm a little more excited about the good things. There's more, but those are the ones that we kind of deal with and see on a routine basis.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, myself as a manager buying environments, like many environments, to run applications, and you have to scale for the worst result, and you hardly ever use this stuff, hardly. Yeah.
Absolutely, I'm glad to be out of that, especially with the supply chain issues we face today.
So back in the day, I was one of the people selling you that hardware and getting yelled at because, 3 months after buying it, we would have guessed the capacity expansion incorrect, so you would have yelled at me. So glad to be out of that business as well.
Awesome. Listen, this was great, really informative. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Thank you, Roshni. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
And we'll bring the next section up. One more.